So today I'm going to talk about basically some a series of works which we have been pursuing with Adan and many other collaborators. I have mentioned a few collaborators here only, but like there were other works like locally. So it's better to use some phenomena which you can like harness locally. And yeah, so like I mean, it could be possible that there is no Bob, and like you have only Alice. So what to do with those scenarios where you have only Alice? And maybe in the community there is a much focus on device independent theories, but maybe we should look at like Bob independent theories, like the scenarios where like I mean just there is one party and what you can do. And it's very much important, like from the like for my other research area where like I have been pushing forward from the perspective of NIST and all, where like all the quantum computers, like I mean, they are scaling in size, and we want to know whether yeah. So that's like the long-term goal, but you can think about that's the motivation, like yeah. So the goal is to characterize untrusted devices. So IBM, Google, like Microsoft, like I mean, Microsoft not at the moment, but let's say maybe in the future, and IonQ and many different companies and like enterprises, they are coming up with devices, and we have the goal to characterize untrusted devices. Now, Bell non-locality based self-testing can be employed to characterize quantum devices via measurement statistics. But we know that computation typically happens in a local fashion. So is it possible to extend the notion of self-testing to local contextuality scenarios? That's the scenario where it's like just one party. And yeah, I mean, like the first local self-testing scheme was given by us. So like in this PRL paper with Maharshi, like Antonius, Nakil, Adan, and Quek, like we gave a graph theoretic framework to render source self-testing scheme. And we proved that, like not only KC-based inequality, but all its generalization, they admit robust self-testing. So we also proved the robustness, like in the presence of noise also, you can have yeah, like you can make some self-testing statements. Yeah. So, and then we went on to, like write this another paper, like, I mean, we further harness our tools to like kind of prove for the odd anti-cyclic graphs. And these graphs are interesting because like you can use them to like certify quantum system of arbitrary high dimensional. And in this paper, we also give like an SDP based like protocol, which can be used to yeah, like certify quantum devices. Like, and also like given any graph, like you can like conclusively say whether it can admit self-testing or not. So like, I mean, so earlier, like, there were many papers coming like one by one. We gave a protocol which you can apply and yeah, like come up with some self-testing statements. And then like we also showed that, like, I mean, so one can ask maybe every graph admits self-testing, and that is not true. We give an example of, like which does not admit. And so I'm giving, like just a summary of the results which we have like come up recently. And yeah, like, I mean, so if you fall asleep after this, that's okay. Like, I mean, the punchline is clear. Like, I mean, this is all that we have like done. And then like very recently, like we came up with a approach where we presented graph theoretic framework to render Bell scenario based self-testing statement. So many of these, like, I mean, this SDP based self-testing schemes, like, I mean, they have the issue that like, I mean, so in the local scenario, you do not have the tensor structure, but on the other hand, you are talking about Bell scenario and all, there is a tensor structure, and there are some subtleties involved when there is a tensor structure, and we overcame those subtleties and gave this a scheme. We recovered some old self-testing statement in our framework, and we also presented a self-testing statement for a previously unknown case. And in a manner of doing so, like what we found out that there was a conjecture. I mean, in discrete mathematics, like I think some of the people, maybe somebody in the audience, like I mean, it was conjecture that for the Mobius ladder graphs, the lowest theta number is equal to Cerielson bond, and using SDP duality arguments, we managed to prove it. So I mean, earlier people were using graph theory techniques to say something about quantum contextuality scenario. But in this paper, we try to give back to the graph theory community in the sense that we use techniques from graph theory of and Bell non-locality and contextuality to provide a quantum inspired proof of you can say lowest theta number for a certain family of graphs. So yeah, I mean, that's all. These are the different results, but that's the punchline. So I may not be able to cover all the slides, and I do not expect that everything will be very clear, because limitation of time, but at least this is the punchline. And if you do not understand anything, it's at least the results, you can stop me at this juncture. And yeah, I can clarify, because the rest of the talk is going to be technical. Okay, so yeah, I assume the results are clear. Results clear to the audience. So I will proceed with the technical part. So self-testing, basically, if you talk about intuitively, it says that given access to only the statistics of a quantum test, let's say some experiment, let's say, where you have some black boxes and you press buttons and you get outcome, and based on the measurement of statistics only, if you can say something about what's happening inside the box, then basically you have self-tested the box. That's the the idea. And this is somehow related to the geometry, and in the self-testing has been used. There was a very recent, very nice review on self-testing also, from Stupik and others. And the idea of self-testing is very interesting. Even in the recent proof of MI p star equal to RE, the idea of self-testing was used. So in the CHSS, for example, if you let's say get this number 2 root 2, then in the words of my collaborator Adan Cabello, you touch God, basically. Yeah, this number is very specific in the sense that if you get this number and if the assumptions are met, then you can say that what's going on inside the box. You can tell that the underlying measurements are Z tensor I, X tensor I on the Ali side, and this is on the Bob side, and yeah, up to some irrelevant degree of freedom, which could be local isometry in this case. And if a CHSS test achieves the quantum bound, then it adds self-testing. That's how we say. But if we think about the Bell inequality, it's nothing but a hyperplane, right? And what it does, that it separates the set of local behaviors from the non-local behaviors. So quantum behaviors, they can be written like this. And let's denote the quantum value by BQ, because this value can be greater than the local value BL. And you say that given, let's say, there is some realization which attains, let's say, this bound BQ, and there is another realization which also attains BQ bound, then self-testing guarantees that these two realizations, they must be related by some local isometry, V A tensor VV. So you can act by V on your realization and you can go from one to another. That's the statement of the self-testing. And the robust self-testing statement basically says that, okay, fine, in the experiments, you do not get BQ, but you get BQ minus epsilon. Can you still say something about what's going on inside your devices? And yes, indeed, you can say something. And you can say that whatever is happening inside is, let's say, some epsilon to the power R close to some canonical setting. Yeah, and that's the robust self-testing statement. So good. We want to but then as we started in the beginning, these theories require other party. There is a Bob should be there. And why should you, let's say, if you are not trusting your device, why should you trust Bob? Maybe Bob is cheating Alice. And so maybe I would say it's important that the community focuses on Bob independent theory, the theories where there is one party and yeah, certain assumptions might come up, in the process, and yeah, but it has benefits because computation typically happens locally, and in communication, it makes sense to talk about two devices. But the moment you are talking about computation, it's better to talk about a single device. Yeah. Okay. So in contextuality, people have been already talking about what contextuality means and all, and there are different formulations and so on. So I will not spend much time on what contextuality means, but you can say that the context is a set of compatible observables, and let's say observable A, B, and C. A and B may be compatible that context 1, A and C may be compatible that context 2. But given a theory, a value of an observable can depend on the context in which it belongs, like in which it is measured. If it depends, then it's contextual. If it doesn't depend, then it's non-contextual. And quantum mechanics is a contextual theory, like, and we know this very old proof. And very nice framework by Cavallo, Severini, and Winter came, where they looked at something like which people have been exploring in graph theory, like Lovász and others, like. And what you can do that you can like in any experiment, you can talk about certain events. So let's say a measurement event. So measurement event basically, you perform some measurement, you get some outcome. And there are certain, and you can relate, like the relation between events and events using graphs, like, and people always do, like if you have some variables and there's certain relation between variables, so you can capture them using graphs. And here you can capture measurement events using graphs. So you have some set of events, and then certain events, let's say they are mutually exclusive in the sense that same measurement but correspond to different outcomes. So you can denote the events by nodes, and you can, and if two events are let's say mutually exclusive, then they can share an edge. So for example, in the KC-based the famous scenario, you have like 5 mutually exclusive events, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like in a cyclic manner, and you get this graph. Similarly, for the CHSH, like the 8 events which people are normally interested in, they have like this interesting graph. And so once you have some events, you can assign probabilities to those events, certain to the constraint that like Pi plus Pj less than equal to 1 if I and j, let's say they are mutually exclusive. So if I happen, then j cannot happen. So if one is like Pi, let's say, is 1, then Pj, you force that to be equal to 0. And yeah, like and then you can define non-contextual, like you can define deterministic non-contextual behaviors as those where you fix, let's say, 1, 0, 1, like the deterministic values to, let's say, set the events. And the polytope of non-contextual behaviors is basically the convex hull of all these deterministic non-contextual behavior. So everything inside that polytope, that you call that non-contextual behavior. Now, this is a very nice framework, because once you have that, then the facets, they turn out to be the non-contextuality inequality, and you get your nice non-contextuality inequality, and then you can talk about like what happened in the quantum case, and then you can associate projectors. You can write your probabilities in trace rho pi I, and put your exclusivity constraint as trace pi I pi j equal to 0. If one happens, the other should not happen. And then you can again define like what an ensemble means. Let's say what is the set of quantum behaviors, like what is the quantum value, and so on. Now, what we say that similar to the Bell case, we can say that, let's say, again, if you attain this value, let's say BQ contextual, then the two realization, they must be related to some isometry. And let's say if you do not attain BQC, but you attain some suboptimal value BQC minus epsilon, then in that case also you should be able to make some statement. So yeah, that's what we say in the robustness. So very what we are giving is a very step-by-step process to show robust self-testing. So what you can do that you can write your Lovász theta number as an SDP program, which is this is the primal formulation, and you can get the dual formulation of this program. And we proved some theorem using which you can, if certain conditions are met, then by using some properties of dual, you can prove that the primal is unique, and through the uniqueness of primal, you can infer some self-testing statement. So it's a very simple technique. Like you have some non-contextuality inequality, which is related to some exclusivity graph. You write the Lovász theta number formulation, which is with respect to some theta body, and you notice that this theta body is not like a label of an NPA hierarchy or something, because there is no normalization constraint or something. And then you can write the uniqueness of prove the uniqueness of optimal X, from here. and you can prove some error bound analysis for the SDPs, and you can show that the non-contextuality inequality admits robust self-testing. So yeah, like I mean, the generalized KCBS inequalities are basically the generalization of the cycle. So you have cycle, and you can you can talk about general odd cycles where EI and EI plus 1 are exclusive, and then this is the classical bound, this is the quantum bound, and you can give your self-testing statement. And then we managed to prove the self-testing statement for the anti-cycles also, which can be used to prove which can be used to certify systems of high dimensionality and all. And for that, we use certain primal dual relations. So the primal optimal of the cycle is related to, you can use that to get dual optimal of the dual optimal of the anti-cycle. And in this way, like you can relate them and say something interesting. And this can be used to, certify high dimensions. So basically, we have this claim that for all odd n, the dimension n in which the quantum realizations corresponding to anti-n cycle graph achieves the maximum is n-2. So yeah, like for that we use a certain property that the primal matrix is a circulant matrix, and yeah, like we prove that the rank of X star has to be greater than equal to n-2. So we prove that, and we give explicit construction for n-2. Yeah, so like I mean, the dual optimal is indeed n-2. Like I mean, we give and we indeed prove that there is one n-2 dimensional construction. So yeah, I mean, like you can use the framework to for device certification. Like I mean, you can encode your encode some self-testable graph and ask the computer to program it, and you can perform the statistics, and if you, let's say, get some result which let's say correspond to a regime where robust self-testability holds, then you can use it to say what's happening inside the device is what indeed you wanted. But obviously there is a problem with the local device certification that I mean, obviously one issue is noise, but I mean the current devices that we have are very noisy devices and all. But since it's robust self-testing and I mean and our self-testing bounds are not so bad, so then one can use these schemes. But the other issue is that, I mean, which comes with contextuality, the contextuality can be simulated with memory, and very little work has been done in this direction. I mean, there's work by Adnan, Millet, Oughtred, and a few people have done, but more and more work needs to be done, in the sense that so what I see that as you try to simulate this scenario, and because we prove it for graphs of arbitrary large size, the classical simulation will require memory, but there will come a cutoff when the classical the amount of memory requirement by the classical simulation will be more than what the current devices can offer. So in this sense, we can rule out any classical simulation, but at the moment we do not know how much memory is required, let's say, to simulate a scenario. I mean, there were a few works in this direction, but I mean, more works needs to be done to really say something interesting. So yeah, I mean, we show that not all graphs can be self-tested, but it will be interesting to give a complete characterization of all the self-testable graphs, which graphs are self-testable and which are not self-testable. We also give robustness bounds, but I mean, it's up to a multiplicative constant. And what is that multiplicative constant? I mean, we are doing some experiment with people at USTC China and all at the moment, and we use the numerical techniques to get those bounds. But it will be interesting to come up with SDP based techniques to find exact those constants. So yeah, I mean, that is something which is another nice open question for future. And then this is a very systematic strategy. I mean, here what we have, the large gap, we know graphs for which the gap between the quantum bound, which is this theta, and the classical bound alpha, like it scales, like, like there are graphs for which this number is very large. So maybe we could use, like those graphs for self-testing and all, because I mean, current devices, like, I mean, they are very noisy. So can we use this, let's say, for like a self, device certification and for the current NISC devices, like, I mean, and then something which is like, kind of my long-term wish, like, is to use, so like we know that there was this paper by like, I mean, classical command of quantum system by Vajrani, Reichert and others, like where they use well scenario based self-testing for verifying quantum computation. But at the moment it's not very clear, but in the future we would like to use our self-testing scheme for verifying quantum computation by classical verifier, like, I mean, sorry, quantum computation. So like, I mean, so there is, you have some BQP device, like some prover, and you have some verifier, and you want to know that what the prover is doing is indeed what you wanted, and is it possible somehow to like use our scheme, that's our self-testing schemes there, to make this statement. And this is very interesting because a lot of work is being done in this verification, because we don't know, like, I mean, the quantum computers, if they are doing, like, are they doing, like, I mean, like, for example, all the supremacy, like benchmarking, like cross entropy benchmarking, which Google used. I mean, one of the issue with these schemes is that when they do this kind of supremacy experiment with sampling, to really know that the answer that you got, you have to classically simulate it, maybe let's say for a small circuits, and from there extrapolate it. So in that sense, it's not very scalable. So like, I mean, can we use some ideas from foundations to like make some nicer statements here? So yeah, so this is like, but this will require a lot of work. And one of the roadblocks at them, maybe in some blind quantum computing setup can help, like, but this I'm saying like very vaguely, like, I mean, it's just coming to mind. But one of the roadblocks at the moment is that we have to maybe, like calculate the memory cost of simulating contextuality. And I don't know, like, that could be some nice direction. So yeah, I mean, so this was all, I mean, and that kind of ends my talk. But just to reiterate my results again, and I think I have some time, I will use that time to like again, like just reiterate, like, so that it gets hardwired. What I'm saying, that if you are if you are talking about computation, it's better and because in computation typically happens locally, it's better to like use schemes which are not necessarily based on Bell non-locality. Best non-locality is good and fine for non-local scenario, for which like the communication or something, but for computation, which happens typically locally, it's better to harness something which is local in nature. And yeah, like we have been working in this direction to like we came up with some schemes and all, and we proved the result. We gave the first local self-testing statement, and we proved like that the generalized K-Sibyl's inequality admits robust self-testing. And then we went on to like give a SDP based approach, like where you can give in a graph, you can say that whether it admits self-testing or not. Like, I mean, we have some flow chart, which I think I showed in the very end, like it's here. Like, I mean, we gave a flow chart, and other than that, like, I mean, we also like proved some dimensional bounds. We also like show that not every graph admits self-testing and all, and you can check out our this paper. And very recently, like what we like, I mean, we have done a particular work for which like we're very proud. I mean, like I did not present it here because of like, I mean, it might get like, more technical and for like the lack of time, but we provided a graph theoretic approach to render Bell scenario based self-testing statement. So yeah, I mean, so this is the first time where like techniques from graph theory and like the CSW framework and like SDP together, everything has come together to say something about, like Bell scenario self-testing statement. And the beauty of this our approach is that you can, this works in like, I mean, there are certain assumptions, but those assumptions are, if they met, then in a very protocol manner, you can derive your self-testing statement. So it becomes very systematic. Like you do not have to, like publish a paper for, let's say, one self-testing result, another self-testing result, and so on. Like you can just follow our protocol. If the assumptions are met, you can prove the self-testing statement. You can recover some old self-testing statement in our framework, like the Marvin self-testing, Bell self-testing, CHS self-testing, and so on. And we also, like for the chain Bell inequality, we recovered also the self-testing statement. We also presented a self-testing statement for a previously unknown case of the Abner-Simony Bell inequality. And in the manner of proving so, we managed to provide a quantum-inspired proof. I don't know whether the proof is not known or not known, but like to the best of our knowledge, the proof was not known, and it was a conjecture. We provided a quantum-inspired proof using some SDP duality argument and all. So in this sense, we are using our techniques to give back to like the graph theory community. So yeah, I mean, and we would reiterate again that. Like, I mean, particularly, though I didn't present these results, but here, like, I mean, this Bell's in our, like, I mean, our theta body framework, like the theta body is not any level of NPA hierarchy because of, there is no normalization constraint, or no signaling constraint as such. So with this, I would like to invite the community to like explore this interesting line of research that we think has a lot of potential. And I conclude my talk with this. Like, please ask questions and let's make things more clear.